Glove up, it might get messy. Oh yeah, Florida sunshine and Jimmy making it work. You've tuned in. It's not going to be for sexy girls, cleavage, jiggly butts. It's going to be for spending a day with a professional mechanic, a master mechanic I might say, with 40 plus years experience, probably closing on 42 now. Yep, I'm old. We're going to spend a day in the shop fixing some cars. A professional mechanic that makes YouTube videos, not a YouTube mechanic that fixes cars to make content. It's a little bit of a difference. I think a lot of people get that confused. Does my audio need work? Sometimes my lighting need work? Yeah, I film while I'm at work, actually doing my job and making a primary income for my family. I hope you guys will spend the day with me, see what we can get done. We got a Chevy Tahoe brake job to finish up. We're doing the brakes on this F350 behind me. And there's several cars out in the parking lot that were either towed in or dropped off. So let's get in there and try to learn a thing or two and have some fun. Stay tuned. Oh, what's that? You wanted to know an update on the 62 C10 project truck? Okay. I got the floors all done, rockers done, the transmission tunnel area is done. We're still working on finalizing the fit up here because it was touching the transmission a little bit. I've been tweaking it to see how much work I have to do there. If I have to modify it, I can just leave it like that. We're going to start on the doors next. I fixed the little corner of the cab too. It was pretty gnarly and I couldn't get behind the bracket there to fix it, so I just cut the metal out, replaced it. You got to clean that up a little bit too. But you're not here for project truck videos, are you? Those are Sundays. Day in the shop, Monday to Friday. Occasional tool videos on Saturdays. Project truck videos on Sundays. First things first, get these Tahoe brakes buttoned up. Shouldn't be nothing but a thing. These come oiled pretty heavily, so if you don't clean this off, the oil gets in the pads and makes them smoke and all kinds of crazy stuff. Sometimes back in the day a customer would come back and go, "It's smoking, it's smoking, you just did my brakes." Always in the habit of trying to wipe most of the grease off. I don't know what this is. It's kind of strange. The rags are decomposing or something. It's kind of strange. Get this caliper over here, get that knocked out. The brake fluid on this thing looks pretty nasty. It's never flushed the brake fluid. I've had some people tell me that's nonsense. You don't need to flush brake fluid. And I'll show you why when I take the brake hose off this caliper. I find it easier to mount the whole caliper before I take the caliper itself off the pad bracket and mount the whole assembly, rather than doing it on a workbench and all that. Let the bolts hold it for you. Get these buttoned up. I'm going to go about two to three ooga-doogas on these. That's right around 2.5 ooga-doogas. Now, that's good. The other caliper wasn't tight. This one they tightened. I still check them both. I'll check the bottom one too. I just swing that down, get my hardware in there.
Hey Bill, get the top of the point button up and pull it around.
A little bit of grease on my contact points. You don't want to load it up. Just a little hint. Keep things from binding up. I'm going to put it on the caliper too. There's already some kind of coating on there, it looks like. These are just 2 ooga-doogas. No need for third. Okay, that's tight. Now, I'll show you guys something interesting with this caliper and this fluid. For those who say mechanics are just ripping you off when they sell brake flushes. Someone stop him before he gets to Katie. Dump truck out front with a squeaky belt. You guys work on dump trucks? No. Yeah. Air? Yeah. Yeah, you can pull it up here.
Okay.
Yep. Show you guys why you should flush your brake fluid. That's nasty. That's why you're supposed to flush brake fluid. The calipers are the sewers of the system. That's gross. Uh-oh. That's gonna fight me a little bit. No worries. We got power tools. And we got a phone ringing. That's good. Potential customer, get the phone. Uh-oh. Comes with aluminum washers. Every once in a while they do that. Probably for an aluminum caliper or something, I guess. But the original ones had copper. I'm not going to pretend I know when I don't know. You guys know why they use aluminum instead of copper on some applications? I see it on the remans, but not necessarily from the factory. They seem to always be copper from the factory. Can't get too crazy tight on those either, they'll strip the aluminum. One caliper came with an 8mm bleeder, one came with a 10mm bleeder. I'm tempted to send one back as a defect. That's crazy, they should match. Oh yeah, it's bleeding. I'm gonna let that cook a minute. Yeah, do a little vacuum bleeding. Kind of doing a mini flush for them because the fluid was so nasty. I don't think they're charging for it, but it only takes a minute while we're here. Same thing on this side. Now these hub caps have a little guide pin. You got to line up with the guide pin hole. It's not optional where you put them on. They only go on one way. I learned something today. I feel smarter. I feel bad for him, but it's actually kind of funny now. Truck driver doesn't know how to put air in his tires. It's been like 20 minutes. Maybe I should go help him. Because I'm going to have to get this Tahoe out of here to road test it. Now I got to see, make sure everything else is quiet. Alright, take this thing for a drive. Make sure everything is A-OK. Oh man, that's nice. Quiet as a mouse. Not bad for a 158,000 mile truck. Bone dry underneath, not a single oil leak. It's unusual. Usually the oil cooler adapter's leaking and the rear main seal and things like that by this time. He is 200 miles overdue on his oil change. So let me put this camera away. Took it out because there wasn't any traffic. Oh look, an apartment. Oh, there's a motorcycle there, scooter. All right, stop forcing around. Focus, focus. Let's get back to the shop, see what's next. I see Challengers everywhere. Oh, and classic Corvettes. All right, now apparently the F350 is in emergency mode. So we're gonna finish it up, I think, finally today. At least the brakes. We're not gonna do the gas tank stuff and the ignition switch stuff and the battery draw. Brakes and an engine. But at least it'll be stopping. Couldn't have been stopping too good before. Oh, I painted his drums for him too. He said, "Are those drums gonna get all rusty? I'm gonna take the wheels off and paint them." I said, "Man, I got you. Don't worry about it. I got you." Let's get this off of here. It kind of looked the same as the other side did, but I don't have to mess the emergency brake cable on this side. That's good news. When's the last time you guys seen one of these? I don't want to show off, but Craftsman 46945 USA. That is a classic. Honestly, I can't even tell you how old this is, but I want to say I bought this in the 80s. I'm not positive. Worked great for all this kind of drum brake stuff. It's got a little grabber claw here. Helps you with that. This helps you if you have the GMs and stuff. They just have two springs up here, a little simpler. And you just turn this over and pull the springs off. So, super handy little guy. This stretches them back on. You put it over the post. I ground some of the material off here because it was a little too thick and it would make it hard to get the springs to chase it down. So like years ago, I ground this down to make it a little easier to unload the spring onto the post. Works great. They're probably still available. I don't know if it'll be under a Craftsman USA or Craftsman Taiwan or China or what, but and Lyle probably has something similar. But it's super handy if you're gonna get stuck doing drum brakes. Nobody likes to do drum brakes anymore. I'm like, well, I'll do them. They're a little finicky and sometimes it takes a few attempts to get a spring to go on or off, but they're really not that bad. Just gotta be patient. And there are times when I'll just walk away for a few minutes, gather my thoughts, contemplate my existence, watch the sunrise or set, or have a little lunch or something, and then go back to it. Can't let it beat you. You just got to take a break sometimes and go back at it with a fresh perspective. Take note too, if you didn't see yesterday's video, this cable, which I have to change, it doesn't look like it's broken yet, obviously, but the other side was broken. We're going to change them both. I got 2 of them. That way it doesn't snap in a month or 2. But keep in mind that it goes under the hold down and above the brake shoe. You can kind of sneak it in between there, but yeah, and I'm sure like the other side will, oh no, that's free. Nice. Wasn't expecting that. I do have to thread it way in though, because the shoes and the drums are all nice and fresh, so it's going to be less of a gap. So even though this one's not stuck, I'm still going to wire wheel it and grease the threads a little bit. No one ever seems to grease these things, but they're always frozen if you don't. So this does have some grease on it. That's why it's not frozen, I guess. That's good news. And again, if you didn't see yesterday's video, not too much grease, and pay attention to the direction of the teeth. This little arm is the self-adjuster arm, and this catches on the teeth. When you back up and hit the brakes and the brakes leverage the other way, it ratchets the teeth. A couple teeth at a time. But if you put this in backwards, it won't adjust, it'll skip. This way it catches them. You see the teeth have quite a radical difference. It's a 90 to the center, and this way it's a 45. So you just gotta watch that when you're working on these. Like I said yesterday, some guys take all the brakes apart. I do that if I'm really familiar with them, but I prefer, even now, as many times as I've done some of these vehicles, I'll just do one side at a time. If I forget where something went, I can reference the other side that way. These are Cenex deep impacts. I use them on my Chromie ratchets, no problem. I try not to do it the other way around, where I got chromes on the impact, but just because one's a snap ring or a ring detent, one's a ball detent. So I'm gonna probably not repeat every single thing on this side, but we'll do some of it. And if you guys felt like you missed something, if you look at yesterday's day in the shop video, I did the other side. See what you pick up, what I might have missed on this side, because I'm going to kind of breeze through this. I don't think I filmed pressing this apart last time, so we'll do a little bit more of this. I think the socket's a little big, but I didn't want to have to go back in and make 2 trips, so I just grabbed one of my bigger ones. Be all right. Like I said, they're not in there crazy hardcore. I'm going to try to keep this from all coming apart, like I said yesterday, so you don't have to worry about having it in the right order, putting it back together. I do have to lubricate this a little bit just to feel better about it. Make sure everything's nice and free. Don't drop. Not going to work that way. I must have flipped it over when I lifted the bushing out of it. I got to hammer it in the opposite direction. So I'll use my 10mm socket and hammer it back together to get it into the backing plate, which it also has to hammer into. And that's not going all the way in, that's just to get it started. Just enough so it doesn't flop around on me. Because now the backing plate will help me. I'm going to lubricate in here too, but first I want to get this all together. And you only have to go in until you can get the nut started in the back, and the nut will pull it in for you. Make sure everything's lined up correctly. Now that I know the trial fit worked, I can change the wheel cylinder out and put it in permanently. It's an 11 on the line and 10s on the hold down. There's 2 bolts holding it to the backing plate and an 11 line. So I always try to break the line loose and make sure it's not frozen to the fitting. I'm sorry to my rust belt folks. I didn't mean for that to be that easy. A little quarter drive 120 XP extended handle. I like it. Once it's unbolted, it should pop right out of there. It's a big deal. What is the big deal? Clean our work area a little bit. I always like to start the line first. Some of you guys may have seen that. But I always start the line first because that's the one that's the most critical. If you bolt the wheel cylinder up and then try to get the line started, I find it's a little bit more of a hassle. So I can manipulate the wheel cylinder and get that line in a few turns. Now I know I'm good to go once the wheel cylinder is bolted up. It just seems like a little bit less hassle to me. Some people may do the line afterward. Since it's already bent into position, it'll probably be okay that way. Get this snugged up, we'll start putting them shoes back on. These just pop in the wheel cylinder boots. Dust caps, actually, the seals are in here. These are just for dust and dirt. And there's a spring in between and 2 pistons. The seal is actually going backwards. You have to kind of compress the seal, put it in, and then you put the piston in. The shoes push against the spring, hydraulic fluid pushes against the shoe springs. There's a lot going on in there. We used to rebuild these back in the day. You didn't buy them from China for $4 a piece. We used to rebuild them. You got a boot kit, seals, etc. That was the old days. Some of you whippersnappers probably haven't had to do that. Lubrication. Let's get them shoes on there. Some of the strangest hold down pins known to man. When I took this back off, I couldn't get in there with with this in my way. I did it on the other side and it was less fun. Let's just put it that way. So I think it's easier to drop this cable through afterwards. You would know I've done 100 of these, but it's been so long I don't remember exactly how I did it. Work on 7,000 brands. That's what happens. That's all right. Get that nut tightened up. Get on another shoe. Yeah. My goodness gracious. Now, I'm putting the hold down on last. Hook this little doodad in, and then you got to get your little tool, forward brake hold down tool. And hope it doesn't all come apart on you. There you go. It's not so bad. Alright. Got the bottom hooked in. Got to make sure the adjuster cable stays in the little slide bracket. And then you got to hook it on here. You can lift this, not that much tension on that little spring. The kit didn't come with this spring. Normally they used to come with that, but you see how it works to the adjuster here. So you make sure everything's working good when you do this, and make sure everything stays where it's supposed to stay. Got my big spring in. I use side cutters to pull this in because I didn't want to poke a hole in the shoe with my special tool. Usually you would use this. So what I'll do is, like, if a rivet lines up with it, I'll use this. If it doesn't, I'll use side cutters and try to do the minimum amount of damage I can on the spring. It just nicks the coating. It doesn't hurt the spring. So this is good. We're good to go. You gotta get these adjusted up so the new drum fits snugly. You can feel the resistance on the shoe. Golden. You gotta bleed the brakes too. That's pretty good. I can feel the shoes dragging on the drum. Calling that a win. I'm gonna touch up this paint a little bit more now that it's on here, instead of on the cardboard, on the engine crate. That was just a light tack coat anyway. Gotta make it look pretty. Got a show to go to. I can bleed these rear wheel cylinders. I'm getting too old for this stuff, I think. That's what I think. Ooh, got the battery charger on the F350 so I can make sure them brakes are good. You guys might remember this car. 2003 50th anniversary Corvette. 12,628 original miles. I had a little dampness on the rear differential when I checked it out when I first bought it about 2 months ago. I guess they sold them a differential seal. Never did one. We'll see. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. Don't panic. Don't panic. But subscribe if you haven't yet. These Corvettes have very sensitive lift points. There's actually pucks that you can buy that you put them in there and turn them 90 degrees in the frame. But I just use blocks of wood. We don't have the pucks. We work on Corvettes. We just don't have the stuff for them. Tangled web we weave. Oh, it is dripping. It does have a drip on it. I feel a little better about it then. The axle seal's dry. It's the O-ring and the case half. So we're gonna take some stuff out of the way and pull that cover off of there. Take the axle out, etc., etc. Stabilizer, that's just like for vibration. That's got to come out of there. That's where you fill it from. I don't know where you drain it from. We got to drain it too right there. Piece of cake, man. It's easy. We got to take the axle out to get to that side cover, and to do that we got to disconnect our ABS, parking brake, unhook it from the bottom, take the tar rod end off. This bracket I'm going to take off with the cable. Then you can slide the axle or press the axle out to get to that lower ball joint, and then you'll be able to get the knuckle out of your way so that the axle can come out. That's the plan anyway. I know it comes out of there. If I can get this bracket out of my way, things will get a little easier. I think these are hub bearing bolts and they hold the bracket on. I'm not sure, but it seems that way. And I guess the shock's kind of in my way. It's a work in progress. We'll figure it out. Oh man, they talk about the special tool you're gonna need to press it out. And I got my air hammer. I was all excited. The axle's floating in there. It's not pressed in. Turkeys. Can't quite get the nut off unless you push the axle out. That's the whole point. Came off a little easier than I thought it would. Yeah. All right, you. Lego my ego. Let's see if the side impact can do it. I don't know if this tool's big enough and nasty enough, but we'll try. That's such a disappointment. All right. She wants to be tight. Then I'll get my bigger tool and we'll do some real damage. How does that make you feel? Now I gotta find a spot to hook this. I don't know if there is a spot. This caliper also doesn't weigh much. It's aluminum, another one of those ones. Another one of those ones you don't hang it on the hose just so you feel better about it, but you'd probably be fine. Everything's disconnected. I'm just gonna take the upper ball joint out and get the knuckle out of my way. Why would I want to leave it in my way? It seems silly at this point. Everything's out off of it. That's a 18. Man, that hardly was even tight. 12,000 miles. Did they ever tighten that from the factory? It's never been taken apart. It was literally like, I don't know, 14 foot-pounds or something it felt like. Alright, let me get this out of here. Get it out of the way. Then we're going to get the axle out of there. It says something about taking the exhaust out of there too. I guess a couple of the bolts might be blocked or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. Is that ball joint turning? You son of a guns. It looked like it was loose and turning. Out of my way. Now I don't have to disturb his 12,000 mile rotor retainer clips or anything. Just stay like a show car. Look at the size of those nuts. Bill said he's a little self-conscious. Come on, little Chevy, you can do it. Working on GM junk all over the place around here. What the heck? This was 12,000 miles already broken. I'll let that thing drain a little bit while we work. We don't have to worry about it that way when we get to it. Side cover's gonna come off. It's gonna come out anyway. All right, I refilled my brake clean dispenser. I just saw someone telling Ray, why don't you get the big drums of brake clean and use a dispenser like a Sure Shot? So I commented, I don't know if anyone saw my comment in there, I thought it was pretty smart. I said, I did the math, and if it takes 5 minutes to fill your brake clean dispenser, 5 minutes in our shop at $140 an hour is $11.50. So you're paying for the fluid and $11.50 labor to fill your own, so you don't have to buy a $3.50 can of brake clean. I don't know. Just saying. I'm just, let's do it my way, I'm just saying. Just a thought. Time is money. At least it always has been until recently. It used to be money. Some people don't value time so much anymore. Well, I should say some people don't value other people's time, only their own. clean this off a little bit. I have to clean it a little better. For now I'm just cutting down on the messy stuff so I can work in there. And of course the side cover is going to get cleaned in the parts washer. It's kind of nice when they only have 12,000 miles on them. Now I know how easy you dealership guys have it. I mean, you know you're constantly surrounded by studs on this channel, but in this instance, the stud they mean goes to the transmission from that side cover. So you got to extract the stud once you get the nut off of there. It said something about double nutting it, but there's no room for 2 nuts. I have some stud sockets, but I don't know if there's any room to fit a stud socket in there either. We're headed for trouble. I hope not. That's not so tight. Come on. What are you bracing for? Oh, I hope that stud's not that tight in there. Uh-oh. Definitely can't get it by hand. I went ahead and I got myself 2 big, beautiful nuts without flanges so I can put them on there and try to lock them together to get that stud out. That's all there's enough room for up there. And we'll see what happens. That seems pretty tight. I don't know. Feels like something's happening. It's a hit. You guys see what it's caught on? Oh, look at that thing. That's crazy. Now we got room to work. Well, it was ripping the threads out of the nuts I was trying, so I had to bust out the old Malcos, and they got it. So now I'm just coaxing it out about 1/8 of a turn at a time. I had to take the exhaust out. You saw that. Stud's turning now, you can see it. So these things are badass. I tried my cheap ones first and they didn't work. These things have hardened teeth and they sink into the bolt rather than just messing up the teeth on the vice grip and the threads a little bit. It just destroys the threads, which I'll just put a bolt in there instead of a stud when we're done. Didn't get it by hand, of course. Now it's chewed up. I've been going at it for about 5 minutes, 1/8 of a turn at a time or so. I think I got thread lock on it or something. That's good stuff. Wait, you can't even see it, can you? I apologize. Let's go ahead and light it up. Oh, that thing is a little chewed up. Not terrible. I mean, probably could salvage it running a thread chaser or a tap on it, but I'll either have them get me a stud or I'll put a bolt in it. Let's see if we can get this little vibration dampener dealie off of here, just to make it easier to get it in and out. Uh-oh. Oh, that wasn't so bad. You gotta ask yourself, is that a balance weight or is that for vibration? Only one of those answers is correct. Remember, high performance Corvette. I just hope when I loosen this up, it doesn't go boing and a bunch of springs and stuff come out. I don't know. We'll see. How the heck did I grab my 11 instead of a 10? That makes me sad. One bolt had corrosion on it. Help you? Okay, listen for the boing. And if you hear it, then you need to go wah, wah, wah. That's just the way it works. At least in my world. Don't even get too crazy. Alright. You gotta take all the bolts out. That's today's pro tip. There was one last bolt hidden in the front corner I didn't see. That's why I always pry a little, but not, I don't just try to knock it off because it'd have broken an ear off the cover. So that's bad. The straighter you pull it off of there, the better. So it's binding up, and it makes it really... Uh-oh. That's the O-ring we gotta change. I'm gonna put an axle seal in it too while it's out. Let's get this thing in the parts washer. It's got a little Torrington bearing in here, so I had to be real careful I don't want to get parts washing solvent in this bearing, because sometimes it'll leave a film on it, make the bearing destroy itself, because it'll keep the oil from actually getting through the film to lubricate the bearings, if that makes sense. Believe it or not, that's a phenomenon I've read a lot about. So over the years, I've learned to avoid washing bearings. I see a lot of people wash bearings in a parts washer before they pack them. That's a big no-no from everything I've ever heard. You guys tell me otherwise if you're doing it, but I wipe the grease off, pack my bearings, put them back together. Same thing with this, no solvent. And then I rinsed it with brake clean because our parts washer is nasty. And I also didn't get any brake clean in here just in case. I am gonna have to pop that seal out of there. And this O-ring should be pretty straightforward. It probably just dry rotted a little bit, hopefully. So, got a new one. Genuine GM parts. That's the part number if anyone's got to do their Corvette. There's no direction on this, but I'll try to make sure it's not flipped or anything, so it's not trying to fight itself. You can put a little Vaseline on there if you want. A little bit of clean differential oil. Should be good. This should be a matter of some kind of a punch, chisel and a hammer. And popping it out of there. I definitely don't want to go through here and risk damaging that needle bearing. Torrington bearing, I believe they call them. One of you scientists like guys, you tell me. I don't know. Let's check the new seal before we hammer that out, because it was dry. I'm only replacing it because we're going to have the cover off. It looks the same but different. I don't know. It looks like it might be a slightly different diameter. Let me ask them if they want me to hammer this one out. That's not exactly the same. Alright, that's an updated seal. And they also want you to put silicone around the flange without getting it on the O-ring. That's all updated service bulletin type stuff. And you don't want to knock the silicone back off. And I'm just going to show it a little bit of who's boss. Back and forth, a little at a time. First you're too gentle, try it again. A little boss for the transmission stud. Yeah, it fights you. Now we can throw the bolts in there, 20 foot-pounds. Winner, juicy steak dinner. I see. No worries. I got a 13 mountain wrench right here. You have to go the other way now. There it is. Vibration dampener is, counterweight for balancing the chassis. That's what I meant. We got some Mag 1, only the best. And then we got some limited slip from Lube Guard. This stuff's actually really good. Everything we've tried from this brand has been pretty good. Because, proprietary technology and all that stuff. We'll dump this in here first. Make sure we get out the whole bottle in. Make sure we get 98% of the bottle in. Be a little more careful with this one. Lift this up. How about that? Now we can dump it. I think he's got another one of these on the way. This is our last one. The guys have been servicing the AAA trucks and using it all up. There it goes. This stuff's pretty thick. I kind of have to pump the ever-loving daylights out of this because it'll force fluid out all the joints and stuff. Keep pressurizing just a little at a time and wait. This stuff is a little bit heavier than motor oil. Some try to tell me it's not, but I can pump motor oil with this thing way easier than differential fluid, so I'll let that cook a minute. While we're waiting on differential fluid, start putting this knuckler back on here. As long as I get this bolt in before I put the tie rod in, then if I can turn it, I can clear the strut. Got a hot set over here, dang it. Turn that damn Viper off. Just kidding, I don't care. I car is crazy. Not easy to get parts for either. I know the alignment rack's nice and cool. That's what I know. That's going to be a problem. More room in the front. You know what? I think that thing's turning. I'm like, man, there's a lot of threads. Now that ball joint stud is just about peeking through the top. I can use this to try to leverage it into the knuckle. Hopefully that'll stop it from spinning. I'll be able to tighten it up. There's no Allen or anything on the top that I can feel. Maybe there is, but the axle's in the way. That would make it awkward. Okay, that did it. Now it's tightening. Not gonna be able to get the box on there. That makes me upset. Ooh, that's tight. I'm gonna hit it again once I get the tie rod end in so it's not flopping around. Same thing on the top. I'm gonna try to wedge it into the knuckle so it'll let me turn the nut only. It doesn't always work. If you're using new nuts, they'll probably overpower it and break it loose. But it works when you're using these nuts like I'm doing. Solid 3 Ooga-Doogas on ball joint nuts. That's not so bad. This job actually pays pretty well. Nobody wanted to do it. So I got elected, and really not bad. So next time I'm going to go, I don't want to do another one of those. That's crazy. You're going to pay me more. Actually, I'm not good with that kind of stuff. I'm not a very deceptive kind of person. I just take what I get and make the best of it. That's all there is to it. It's going to be fine. I tighten these 2 bolts with a box end wrench. Not enough room to get in there with cool mountain wrenches and stuff. I think I can get to this one. Well, you know what I could do? I don't want to tug on this harness. I bet you my quarter drive will turn them most of the way in with a little 15 on there. See if trickiness will be rewarded. Don't get too cocky too fast. You gotta wait. I should have tightened the bolt before I giggled. I'd say the hardest part of this job was getting that stud out of the transmission so I can get the side cover off of it. Other than that, it wasn't too bad. These are also hub bearing bolts, so that's gonna be a pretty good 45 foot-pounds or so. Gear wrench. Get those caliper bolts in before the tie rod in too. Now, seat it and tighten it. Oh, I fell out. See? So now I'll get my channel locks and we'll help it along. I didn't mean channel locks, I meant my knipeouts. I misspoke. These are the Raptors. There's Raptors and Gators or something like that. I forget which one's which. GoPro felt like turning off, so it didn't record any of that. I apologize. I got a rag in there because I cleaned this all off already. Flexible funnel will probably be a lot better. I just haven't bought one yet. I'll get to that eventually. As soon as I see fluid trickling out, I'm going to reverse my pump. It goes both directions, so it'll stop more fluid from making more of a mess. This thing's almost done. There it is. Corvette's got that brand new car smell because it only has 12,000 miles on it, so of course it does. Just because it's 20 years old doesn't mean nothing. Took about 2.5 quarts. Tighten this up before I distract myself telling stories, and then I'll give it a once over. Make sure everything's ready to go. We'll get the wheel on there. Got my stud, my drain, and my fill. Make sure there's no little drips going to be on his driveway or garage. Everything looks good. Exhaust is back. I do want to hit that lower ball joint one more time with a 21. Everything else is good. Calipers on. It's all tight. No matter how sure I am, I always like to go over one more time and make sure I got everything except the axle nut. And that'll be the only thing left. Axle nut and then a wheel. Boom. Axle nut and a wheel. Pop the center cap off so I can get to the axle nut with some weight on it. Get that torqued. I gotta look up the torque spec. I'm gonna guess 165. We'll see. Sometimes I'll mark them and put them back where they were when I'm not replacing the bearing or the axle or the hub. I just mark it and put it back where it was. But I forgot to mark it, so we'll torque it. No big deal. Wheels get $100. And the axle nut is only 118, which I'm kind of surprised. I thought it was much higher. I'll probably have to loosen it. We'll see. Oh yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, 230. That's too much. Even that's 140. It feels like nothing. That's terrible news. There you go. That'll work. These are more fragile than your average vinyl caps. Definitely don't want to put that on that way. I'll line it up with the valve stand. So I'll put these on by hand because they're pretty fragile. The vinyl ones will kind of skip. These will crack. And I got some war wounds on this car. Got me all over the place. Oh. Alright guys, monster truck's got good brakes, runs good. That Jasper engine's running good. Part's supposed to be here for the Land Rover any day. So I think I'll be working in the Colorado soon, trying to figure out that wiring problem. Some people were mentioning dashboard problems, but this is definitely not just lights and gauges. This is actually the engine cutting off when you put it in reverse. Put it back in park before it stalls, it'll recover. So if something's loading the harness, it's touching somewhere. That's what we're going to be looking for next on that one. So we're going to end this video here today. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you got something from it. I really enjoyed your company. Torque the like button on your way out if you would. And make sure you show up for the next video. I want to see you there because you're awesome.